Hello, welcome to Woods and Water Outdoors. I'm Patrick Corcoran. Today I want to talk about when color matters. I know there's a lot of conversations about whether it's profile or color or what have you. And I just wanted to share an experience I had recently with everyone and a jig that made all the difference. So right before Christmas, I went out with a friend of mine to a lake out in north of Abilene called Lake Stanford. And we were seeing fish everywhere and not having much success in getting any takers. We were catching one here or there, but no real success. And for the number of fish we were seeing, it should have been game on, at least in our minds. So we were moved a couple different places and got to the spot and caught 3 fish just immediately on a little shad colored bait, and then nothing. And still seeing all the numbers down there. Fish weren't scattering, they were just sitting there. So I got to looking at the watercolor, and it kind of reminded me of how Lake Texoma looks. And a friend of mine named Cody Peacock had shared with me a jig that he had done real well on Lake Texoma. And so I had tied up a couple of them just to have handy in case I was at Texoma or wherever. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna throw that on there and we'll see what happens. And no sooner than it got to the level of the fish, it was game on. And it was fish one after another. And so, it was the same profile as everything else I'd been fishing, and the partner I was fishing with, it was the same thing with him. This is just what they wanted. And so having that in your box, the ability to change baits, I'm pretty much a believer that color does make a difference in certain situations. Obviously, conditions, everything like that change. So I'm going to share with you what the jig was. Got permission of Cody to share it on video with everybody else. We'll be using Bloodtreuse chenille, and it's white neck hackle and a little bit of pearl Flashabou. Very simple jig, nothing too flashy about it. And it's on a fluorescent pink head. That day I was using 1/8. This is a 1/16. And it's not, it's kind of one of them things where you just put some colors together and see what happens. And so, real simple little tie. We'll add our Bloodtreuse. Oop. Did not grab it. And this has a pink head, and the Bloodtreuse chenille, if you haven't seen it, has red and pearl crystal in it with fluorescent green. And so, a lot of times we try to match our head paint to the colors in the chenille or the color in the tail. This jig does not do any of that. And so, were they going to hit it the same if it would have had a red head, white head, chartreuse head? Maybe so. I don't know. I never really take the time to, once you get the fish biting, you don't switch a jig just to see if they'll hit it with a different color head on it. There are some jigs that I keep with different color heads. They've found that makes a difference at times. And some of my patterns, I just go with whatever's worked the first time and don't change head colors with them. But So really this video is more about not the jig as much as, having the ability in your tackle box to meet conditions. And you just don't know what jig it's going to be that day. In certain times of the year, I think that makes more of a difference than others. You get them summertime, or fall really, where they're feeding like crazy. But when the weather starts changing, you have patterns changing, cold to warm. Like Christmas Day was 90 degrees down here, so I think the fish were a little bit finicky in particular, and this is the pattern that made them decide that they wanted to eat. And so, because they were feeding, I mean, bait was falling out of them when you pulled them up, and so it was just something they had to have a certain look, and this matched up for whatever reason. But just keep that in mind whenever you're putting together combinations. One of the things about crappie, I think, from my experience, is sometimes the oddest looking thing is the best thing to drop in the water. And so enjoy and tie them up, and we'll see you next time.